me add the interpreters. Russian and Ukrainian. Thank you very much, by the way. Mm, mhm. Okay. Thank you very much. You see my screen where it's like a nice
No.
sunshine day, but here is not yet.
Oh, your background. Yeah,
Yeah. Actually, that's Dragon's Head.
I thought so.
No, yeah, here is still dark.
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh,
dark here.
and it has been raining. I don't know why for the last 3 or 4 days.
That's good. You always need it there.
I think, yeah, it was getting very dry.
Yeah, we've been getting snow.
Uh, well, thank you so much for waking up. Maybe for people in the other side of the world, it's easy, but here. Anyways, thank you so much for coming today to the Pramana party. And thank you, interpreters. I see Anna as well. Thank you. She helped us with many messages. And Lena, thank you. It looks very beautiful there. The lighting and everything, all the books.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so let me show you. Last week we were we kept going with the run look section of the book, the Door to Emptiness book, and we are very close to finish the run look section. Maybe one or two more sessions and we finish the run look section. But what I wanted to do later, once we finish the run look section, to revisit the debates. And I have this feeling that everything is going to be much easier and more clear after we got the run look section. So I think we can revisit that. And then another thing I was doing, which I think can be very great, is to spend some time during the sessions visiting the readings of course number 4. Because I don't know, when I first study some of the foundation courses, I didn't emphasize much the readings, and there are many readings I never did. And now that I'm doing them, is very surprising to me how much beautiful things you can learn by doing the readings.
Hmm.
And okay, let's, I say, start by taking a moment and bringing back our motivation. Why on earth are we waking up so early to do this? Sometimes I wonder. Okay, let's think about what do we want, what do we hope to accomplish? What are we gonna do with it? Who's gonna benefit from it? Mm, so yeah, let's just take a moment to set intention, motivation, hopes and dreams. And then with that in mind and heart, let's start. Okay, so now also before we start, just a reminder that people are still welcome to present themselves. Only very few people have present themselves, and it will be great to keep getting to know who's coming, what are you doing, what are your interests, etc. So please feel free to sometimes raise your hand and present. I think it makes the sessions, it enhances the sessions when people want to present. So you'll be doing the sessions a favor if you present yourself pretty much, unless you say a lot of inappropriate things. I'm just kidding. Some jokes sound better in Spanish. Um, I was gonna say unless you say groserías. Groserías are like kind of cursing, but anyways, sound. I'm just joking. Um, okay, so that's one thing, and the other thing is that yesterday I was talking with Adam, and then he has a class tomorrow, the translation class that Geshe does on Saturdays. Tomorrow is his book. So I was wondering, Adam, if just before we started, today I would like to start with the very first reading, which is very short, it's just 2 pages
Hmm.
of the Foundation Course 4,
Yeah.
because it's really great to set up our motivation on why to study these topics.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if you could share just a little bit of where you're at in your book, in your second
Yeah.
book these days, and just
Yeah.
a little taste of what's the class gonna be tomorrow.
Yeah. Um, so once again, Geshe Michael asked me to translate um, the works that are presenting the second school's viewpoint, right? So that's where Juan is kind of teaching the first book, right, which is the Dura, and that kind of gives us the foundation that we're going to need to study my second book. The second book is a presentation by J of all of Master Dharmakirti's seven works. Um, so we're in, and Juan, thank you so much because I was talking to somebody here where I live, and I was telling them that we've been translating my second book for 5 years now, 4 or 5 years, and we haven't done a review. Um, so I was, if you guys have been coming to the translators courses, um, we go through these books kind of slowly, right? And Geshe Michael really takes his time to help us uh, understand the the Tibetan as well as the philosophy behind it. However, something that I've noticed is that most of the time when I come to the translators courses, I feel a little bit lost. Like, even though I'm present and I'm trying to, kind of stay with what Geshe Michael's teaching every class, I lose track of where we are in each book, right? Because some of these books are quite long. And so what I've noticed is that sometimes the subject matter or the debates that we're covering, um, they may make sense that day, but in my mind, I like to understand where we are specifically in each book. And I think maybe I give you an example with my book, and then you can understand more of what I'm talking about. Um, so, like I said, we've been in my book for 4 to 5 years now, and we haven't done a review. Like, and the person that I was talking to here in town, I said to them, I said, if I was to ask the 300, 400, 500 people that come to the translators courses sometimes, can you tell me what chapter we are in my book? I would be very, very I'd be surprised if anybody could tell me what chapter we're in, right? Um, and it's not because people aren't listening, it's because we haven't done a review in 4 to 5 years. So it just got me thinking, where where are we at in the book? What chapter are we in? What are we studying in this chapter? And how do the arguments and the debates that we're going through support the larger purpose of chapter 4 and G's progression through the book? So we're in chapter 4 right now, okay? And we've spent 3 years, 2.5, almost 3 years, just going through what's called the presentation of general things and the presentation of specific things. So, does anybody know the Tibetan that may go along with that? When I say um, general and specific, but we're not talking about Chiche rock. So we're talking about like, well, here, what if I say Rangten and Chichen, right? Does everybody know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah, I would say it's something, I don't know, archetypes or mental pictures,
Right, right.
meaning
I
chi.
see in the chat some people
Yeah.
haven't. Yeah.
Then
No.
objects, manifestation of that archetype in the real world, according
Yeah.
to the second school.
Yeah. So, um, K-Drip J is going, I think there's, I can't remember how many chapters, but we have an outline for the text. Um, so what we've been going through is how do we differentiate between what Juan was saying here and what I saw in the chat as well. The difference between our idea of a coffee cup and an actual coffee cup. Um, and why might this be important? Can anybody? Does anybody have any ideas why this is super, super important? Oh, come on, you got to. Somebody's got to understand the difference between, right, your mental image of the angry husband in the kitchen and the actual husband in the kitchen, right? I mean, if you're going to, let's say, everybody's heard Geshe Michael present the pen. I mean, 1,000 times. Everybody's heard Geshe Michael present, let's say, the four steps of a karmic project, right? If you're going to try to create your own paradise, right, one by one, changing things in your world and making new things in your world, getting rid of things that you don't like, you have to understand um, the difference between those two things. Yeah. And in the second school, um, can anybody tell me really what the difference between Rangsen and Chichen, the viewpoint of the second school from the middle way school?
The difference on how they explain them.
hmm So this could be confusing. It could be confusing here because when I say Rangsen, I mean like an object like this here, this drink, right? With a cup, like a coffee cup, let's say, an actual coffee cup in my hand. So the second school says that coffee cups, actual coffee cups that you can drink out of, that they exist from their own side. They specifically say that. They say the coffee cups have a nature of their own that exist independent of our own mind, right? And that highest middle way says the opposite. Yeah. They say coffee cups, they exist, they do exist, right? You can drink out of them, However, they exist merely as something that you label, right? So I'm asking you, right? I said, how might this be helpful, right? Because what you're learning in the second school is how to identify what it is that higher middle way says doesn't exist. Okay. So you are learning, you are, how would I say this? By studying the second school's presentation of Rangzhen and Chichen, of actual ideas, actual coffee cups, and your idea of a coffee cup, you are learning specifically what higher middle way negates the gotcha, right? Do you see? So you are being trained throughout the entirety of chapter 4 that we're going through right now in my book on how to identify what is actually not there. But they start by, because if you just lead, let's say, a student straight into higher middle way, it could get confusing. They could misunderstand the gotcha. You know, how many people I talked that came to the classes, to the Lam Rim courses early on, and even myself. I remember doing a 10-day retreat, two 10-day retreats with Geshe Michael, and we had a homework. And one of the homeworks was about identifying the gotcha. And as many classes and as many hours as I had spent, I still was a little bit off. Yeah. So I think the reason and thank you, Juan, once again for asking me to maybe present just a little taste of what it is that we're going through. Um, we've spent 3 years, almost 3 years, just discussing the difference between actual objects and your mental image of those objects, and specifically how those two things relate. Yeah. How they come together. Yeah. And has anybody heard Geshe Michael say in higher middle way how those two things relate?
I have,
Yeah. We,
but
I
I'm
think
waiting to
we
see if
all
somebody else.
well, totally. And I think we all have heard it's sometimes I don't know how to ask the right question either. And my question is a little bit more general, but okay. Well, here, I'll tell you what. I'll just go ahead and say it. And this is key. So I've heard Geshe Michael say many times now um, that in higher middle way, those two things are actually the same thing, right? So what we're learning in my book right now is, is how to identify an actual coffee cup. And then we're looking at our mental image of the coffee cup. And then we're looking at how those two things come together, right? So tomorrow, specifically, we're talking about the color blue, okay? And how do you identify the color blue, okay? Because you don't perceive the color blue with your eye, okay? This is gonna sound weird, okay? But when you look at a patch of color, you are seeing smallest particles, okay? The partless atoms, okay? Your eye doesn't see blue, okay? Your mind sees blue, okay? Your eyes perceive sense data, but your mind ties them together. And as soon as you label it blue, right? Then it becomes blue, okay? So I hope that's not too confusing, but if you've heard Geshe Michael, and I think it might be in course 4. I know it's in course 4, where Geshe he starts to present I think it was a car, right? And he says, like, you can think about what, and this is the classical way that Master Chandrakirti also taught, um, also taught this same subject. They used what was called a chariot. Yeah. However, now we're going to use a car. So when you look at a car, you have a windshield, you have tires, you have a frame or a body, right? But your eye doesn't see, quote, car, does it? No, it sees all these different pieces, right? And then your mind ties it together. Yeah. But it's not until your mind becomes involved, right? When your mind provides that label, right? That's the only time that the car becomes the car. So a car is not a car independent of your own mind, okay? Independent of your own perceptions. And that's a proof. That's a straight up proof, okay? And the more you think about that, the more that will reinforce that karma and emptiness are true, okay? There's no other way around that. No other way around that. So tomorrow we're going to be talking, and I've got a bunch of notes that I've been going through because once again, I wanted to kind of give a. At some point, I'm hoping Geshe Michael will let me give like a 5 to 10 minute kind of review to lead everybody back to where we actually are. Because I feel like a lot of our classes could really help with that. Um, like for instance, in a lot of the books, yeah, I just don't know where we are. Uh, so um, if anybody has any questions, and I hope that was clear enough to kind of bring you up to speed a little bit, um, we're going to be studying blue, the color blue. Uh, and once again, it's like what's the difference between like 1 grain of rice? Like if you took 1 grain of rice and you put it down on the table, and then let's say you put 10,000 grains of rice down on the table, right? But you did it by adding 1 grain of rice at a time. Okay. At what point does at what point does the rice pile become a pile? You see? Like when can you actually say, "Oh, this is a pile of rice now?" Right? Is it when you add the second one or the third one? Is it when you add the 800th one, you know? And it may seem stupid question, but it's the same thing as saying, when does the car become a car? Right? Same thing. Same thing as saying, when does the angry husband become the angry husband? Because there are all these parts together that you're tying there and then you're labeling, right? So there are many different ways you can think about this. And if anybody studied the foundation courses, you know there's a section where Geshe presents the what's called the King of Reasons, right? The Rigpe Gyalpo. And it's the reasoning of interdependence, right? That's one of the things that we're presenting here. Okay. You've also heard Chikdudrel, which means is it one thing or is it many things? Okay. So I would present to you that what we're going through right now in my book is a hybrid. It's a blend of the king of reasons, which is interdependence, as well as Chikdudrel, which is one or many. So I hope you can maybe see how and why that could be important. And I hope I didn't bore you too much. I'm just waking up. I got out of bed 5 minutes before the call started. So,
Adam, and just to clarify,
uh-huh.
did you say at some point that the run look, there is like a, how to ask the question? Did you say that there is a version of Rangsen and Chitzen by the second school, and there is another version of Rangsen and Chitzen, but mind only? Or did you mean
Yeah.
middle
No,
way?
this is super important because you'll start to see in the second school that there's a division. The second school is not entirely unified. It's not entirely they all of the second school doesn't agree. There are actually two sub schools in the second school. Okay. One of those what is called the Sautrantika school that follows scripture, and they actually tend to believe they actually tend to follow um, Master Vatsabandhu's presentation of the Abhidharma a little more, and then the followers of the Sautrantika school following reasoning. The Sautrantika school following reasoning practices more of Master Dharmakirti's works. Okay. And it just so happens that, so you can see how there are two schools within the second school, just like there are two schools within Higher Middle Way. One of those schools, the lower part, what we would say is the lower part of the second school, they actually follow and they follow more of Master Vasubandhu's works with the Abhidharma. And the higher school within the second school, the followers of reasoning, they follow more Master Dharmakirti's works. But the interesting thing there, and what Juan was asking, and the reason I needed to give you a little context there, is because the followers of reasoning actually hold some mind-only viewpoints, which is very interesting. So there's parts of the second school. There are teachings of the higher school within the Sautrantika school that actually start to approach mind only beliefs, right? The reason that's important, okay, is because you start to see that Master Dharmakirti may have actually been a mind only guy, right? In a costume, okay? Because, and we've already seen it in this chapter, in chapter 4, we've already seen Master Dharmakirti and Kajip J both present ideas that were mind only. Okay. And why is that important? Well, because you're starting to see how the different schools flip into each other. Do you see? You're starting to see how if you're Abhidharma practitioner, okay, how the Abhidharma school flips into the second school, right? Because then you have followers of scripture, yeah, of the second school. And then you have the followers of reasoning in the second school and how their beliefs flip over into the mind only school. Okay. So Juan had a very good question. And yeah, I hope this makes sense. And I hope you can see how and why all of these books are very important.
Yeah, yeah. To me, it was interesting to just hear about that there is different ways of explaining Rangsen and Chitzen.
Hmm.
One of them is more considered belonging to the second school, and one of it more belonging to the third school. So
Hmm.
maybe eventually later it will be good to categorize
Yeah.
different beliefs by different schools and
Yeah.
where kind of them start uh cause a overcrossing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Adam, very much. So that's gonna be tomorrow during Geshe class. The presentation on blue and the bend between the king of reasonings with the, how you call it, one or many reason.
Yeah, yeah. It's one or many, whether or not a coffee cup is one object or is it a collection of its parts, like its handle, its color, its hardness, right?
Oh yeah. And isn't actually the fourth school, Madhyamika, but the lower part of the fourth school, the one that uses that argument like things are empty because they have parts?
Um,
Or all schools take
I
that?
I feel like most schools they wouldn't use the word emptiness,
Uh-huh.
but most schools would recognize that. Um, it's a slippery, slippery subject. And if you wanted to spend some time really looking at it, it's called Mariology.
Mm.
So it's I just put it here in the chat. This is the study of parts and wholes. So if you wanted to go watch or get some books and read maybe some things on the subject, it's very, very helpful in your understanding of emptiness. Yeah.
I don't know if this applies on this subject, but there is a story I like. Is I think it's the sales ship.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's what's it called? The ship of Theseus, I believe.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. So they say like if you're gonna let's say I'm here in the United States and I go to San Diego. San Diego, Geshe Michael goes there a lot. And there's a bunch of sailboats over there, okay? Because it's right on the ocean and you could sail to Hawaii if you wanted to, or you could sail to Japan if you wanted to, right? So let's say you start off on this journey, okay? And then you wind up in Hawaii and something has happened to your boat. So you have to fix it. And then you take some of the parts of the boat off and you have to replace them, right? So let's say you get a new sail and a new mast, yeah, and you just start replacing things because of the damage, right? And then you sail on, right, from Hawaii, and let's say you're going to Japan, right? Um, Now you've got a new sail, you've got a new mast, but something else happens in Japan. So you have to replace some more of the boat, right? And then let's say this happens two or three times. And then by the end of your journey, you've had to replace every part of your boat at some point, right? So the boat that you're currently sailing in is no longer the boat that you were sailing in when you left the port in San Diego. Can you say that that boat is the same boat? And at what point does that old boat become the new boat? Right? You see the point? It's a classical paradox and it's a thought experiment that was presented in ancient Greece. Okay. They called it the ship of Theseus, I believe.
mhm,
But it's a very interesting thing to think about because your body may be the same way.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to share with you, and maybe following all the context you are sharing with us, this reading that I found very inspiring. It's just really the first reading on course number 4, and it has two parts. But the first part is really like pretty much like why this study of Pramana can help our lives. So then I was like, okay, this is great activity to do during the Pramana sessions. I'm gonna share it with you. It's just 2 pages. Just before we are so close to finishing the run look section. I think it's a good time to start adding elements and materials from other sources as well. Let me see. Okay. How are the translators doing? Yay. Okay, check it out. Let me see if you can see. Is it okay? Better? Wait, this it's better. Okay, there. So I don't know if maybe some of you remember we used to have this thing with Diamond Cutter Classics called the reading club. Just before the Goodnight Book Club, there was something called the reading club. We used to come once a week and choose segments of readings and then discuss upon them. I think we could spend maybe like 10, 15 minutes doing something similar. And then for the final part of this session, I would like to go to the run look section again. But so, if that's the case, I would like to check if someone wants to read and we can share maybe, I don't know, just a few paragraphs each person. Then if there are questions or commentaries, we can share about it. Let me see. When I share the screen, I cannot see the screen. But if someone wants to read, let me see. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, participants. Just raise your hand. I can start, and if anybody wants to participate with the next paragraphs, just raise your hand and I'll try to see. Okay. Okay, so this is Lord Buddha Shakyamuni on the need of study logic. You see? Okay. The following is found in the explanation of what purpose is served by the reasoning where one proves the non-existence of something which does not appear. What does that mean? I don't know. We'll find out. This section is from Light of the Path to Freedom, written by Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen, in explanation of the commentary on valid perception. Now, Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen is Gyaltsab Je, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. You see how we all, not all, but a lot of our Pramana studies is influenced as well from Gyaltsab Je and from Kedrup Je.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know. Okay, here is the third division on the purpose served by the reasoning where one proves the non-existence of something which does not appear. A sutra states the following. Okay.
Hey, Juan, would you mind going up just a little bit so we can see the Tibetan there?
You want to? Okay, here.
Um, because when I did course 4,
Uh-huh.
I just got offer you something. This is very good verse to memorize. Um, Specifically this section here that says, I or someone like myself can judge a person, but no normal person should judge another, for he will fail or he
Uh-huh.
will fall, right? Um, I can't remember where it was. It might have been Geshe Michael. He was like, no, this is a very good thing to memorize, right? So if you wanted to start memorizing things, there's a lot that you find in the foundation courses that could actually be very good uh, things to practice with, right? Um, and to point out also, this text that Juan, it's called the Light on the Path to Freedom, right? Its name in Tibetan is Tarlam Selche, okay? And the reason that I say that is because this is the book that Geshe Michael talks about studying in the winter debates, where they go to the winter debates, they stay there for a month, I think, right? And then they all day they're debating. And he says that within a whole month, they will only get through like 4 pages of this book. So this is the book. Anyways, I thought it's a
No,
little bit
totally,
inspiring.
totally. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Now, when I read this thing about this is the third division, on the purpose served by the reasoning where one proves the non-existence of something which does not appear, it makes me think about these things that you see how an omniscient being can only see something that exists, because if something does exist, it cannot be perceived even by an omniscient being. I will argue that. So it's interesting that apparently there is a proof like when something doesn't appear, it's assumed it's assumed that it doesn't exist. If let's say I don't know if an enlightened being right now cannot see the $1 million that I have in the bank, that proves that I don't have $1 million in the bank. But I don't know. I think it's just interesting to start developing these tools of uh, coming into conclusions using reasoning and using definitions as well, because you know that definition of existence is anything that an omniscient being can perceive with a pramana. So I think we are playing in that realm in this reading, but let's see. Okay, I or someone like myself can judge a person, says the Buddha, but no normal person should judge another, for we will fall. The statement itself expresses the purpose of the reasoning. What the Buddha is saying here is that without being able to see the real condition, you should never say anything even close to this person has such and such faults. This person hasn't the least good quality, or he or she has some good qualities, but nothing more than that. Okay. Maybe some of you are already starting feeling familiar with this. It's a very famous topic in the study of Pramana. And the context pretty much is that we should not judge what other people are doing, thinking on how they are behaving. Because if we cannot read the minds, we have not the certainty that that judgment is totally correct. In a sense, we will say that if we don't have direct perception of what they're doing, there is always a chance that we are not having a pramana of what they are doing. But I think Geshe has been always encouraging us in the exploration of these topics to go deeper. So in a way, now I question that statement because to me, and I was talking with some friends here in Rimbrook lately, is what about this idea when you start developing some forms of intuition or maybe some forms of assumption or deduction that convey information that could make you make correct decisions. For example, if you see somebody, I don't know, uh, with a very, who knows, you start reading, I don't know, their physical posture, their nonverbal communication, and then you start thinking like, I think that person is sad today, for example. Now, it is true because sometimes people have told me that they think I was sad or something like that, and it was not the case. So I've seen that like, why people think that? But some other times you may be correct. So I would like to raise this question for you all. What do you think is the difference between not judging other people versus having some forms of deduction or intuition about, let's say, if this person is going to be good for a particular task or a particular job, or if these two people that you know could get along? Does anybody has any idea on how to convey these two ideas? For one, the Buddha is saying, don't judge others because you will fail if you have not the ability to have pramana over their mind, hearts, and motivations. In the other hand, I think we as pramana students are encouraged actually to develop our deduction, our intuitions, assumptions, and somehow use them to reach pramanas in our life.
Has anybody heard Geshe Michael say that and I'm being general here, but he says, the highest teaching, highest practice in Buddhism is to imagine that everybody else is enlightened and you're the last person in the universe who isn't enlightened, right? So by that reasoning, we should understand that maybe it's possible that all beings are actually holy beings, right? And so anytime you you think poorly or bad about another person, you may be thinking badly about a Buddha, right?
Yeah, I like that position because to me it seems that this advice of not judging has to do a lot with yes, maybe for one opening to that possibility and understanding that logically it's actually possible.
Hmm.
It's almost like and it connects with this proof of proving, you see, where is it? Yeah, the non-existence of something which does not appear. So for example, you judge someone and that person is just, I don't know what, give me a bad quality that we could judge somebody. Is so selfish, for example. Oh, that person is so selfish. But really, a direct pramana of that quality is not appearing in your mind directly. And in a way, because it's not appearing in your mind directly, meaning you cannot access it directly, you can prove that there is no real evidence that it exists. So it's just an assumption.
Well, and also I think if can you go back up just to the line that you had highlighted? Yeah. Um, something that just came to my mind. Here's the third division on the purpose served by the reasoning where one proves the non-existence of something which does not appear. Okay. We've talked extensively in this class and in these classes that we've been doing. We've been talking about what it means to be non-existent. Do you guys remember we went through a couple times, right? So I'm going to ask you, um, also, we have two realities, right? We have ultimate reality and we have conventional reality, right? One of those things doesn't exist in the way that you think it does, right? Conventional reality doesn't exist in the way that you think it does. So, in some way, and if you guys wanted one of the most beautiful teachings that I've ever heard Geshe Michael give on emptiness, go to the second Lam Rim retreat that was given in Prescott. And Geshe Michael spent 10 days going through um, Pabonka Rinpoche's presentation of these things. I was blown away because he would say something like, no, there are two clocks on the wall, right? There are two clocks on the wall right now. There's a clock that exists, but there's a clock that doesn't exist. Okay. And he would say that those two things, he would say there are two clocks here. And I had to think about it for a while, right? But what is it? I'm going to ask you something. I keep wanting to give you guys context because I want to ask you questions to see if you are listening and to hopefully get your mind working here. What is the most important? What's the most important non-existent thing for your study of emptiness?
The Gaksha?
The gotcha, right? So where's the reading?
Oh, just a second. I need to set somebody as an interpreter.
I
I need to stop sharing in order
Yeah.
to do that. Uh, okay, one sec. Update. Okay, let's go back to the reading.
All right. Sorry for talking too much, but I think it could be helpful in trying to unlock what this text is saying, right? Juan presented something that I think is a very good idea, um, which if something doesn't exist, right, um,
It cannot be perceived.
it can't be perceived, right? However, on another from another perspective here, you could also say that we're trying to prove the non-existence, right, of something that exists from its own side. And if something, right, is non-existent, then it cannot appear, just as it says this right here, right? Does that
Mhm.
make sense? So, in some ways, in my mind, I see this being highly connected to presenting the gotcha, right? And how
Mhm.
things don't exist from their own side. Like a person who you're judging, right, doesn't exist from their own side that way. Yeah, that would be the gotcha, right?
Mhm.
It's trying to say that. Anyways, sorry. I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, and what I hear sometimes that probably is connected is this idea that the gaksha itself doesn't exist, but the belief on the gaksha does exist, and that's what
Mhm.
ignorance or misunderstanding,
Yeah,
marikpa,
yeah.
is doing in our minds. So what we are seeing actually, because someone could argue, how is it that you are seeing something that doesn't exist? And
Hmm.
maybe it's because what you are seeing is an illusion, but
Yeah.
the illusion exists.
Now, can we ask though, how do those two things relate to the two realities? Dempanyi,
Uh-huh,
okay,
uh-huh.
the two truths,
Mhm.
right? How is deceptive reality? Like, can I ask you this? Somebody that you are judging, if you're not a Buddha and you cannot read their mind, right? Somebody that you judge, are they a part of conventional or ultimate reality?
Conventional,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
well, both in a
That's what I
way.
was going to say. That's what I
Yeah.
was going to say. It's actually both, right?
Mhm.
Because the person does have an ultimate nature, right? But what you're engaging with is this illusion that Juan was talking about. Yeah. What you're engaging with is that deceptive, conventional reality. Yeah. Um, and I think it's very interesting because after K-Drip J leaves chapter four, the chapter that we're in my second book that we're going to be studying tomorrow, when we leave Rangtsen and Chitzen, he goes immediately into the two truths. So we're going to hear Master Dharmakirti, we're going to hear K-Drip J present a whole chapter just on the two truths. So one of the reasons I think my mind is cluing into this passage here in this text is because I think it should be highly tied to our understanding of the two truths.
Mhm. Should we keep going in the reading? It's only 2 pages, so we are almost finished.
I'll stop. I'll stop talking. Yeah.
No, no, actually, what if you read the next 2 paragraphs?
I We never know who might be a holy being, and every open and secret scripture there is says that the very finest way to end up in an unbearable birth within the realms of misery is to speak badly about a holy being. Every person who has any intelligence should therefore act with extreme caution in this regard. Treat such matters as though you were walking on the edge of a great pit of glowing embers, innocently covered with powders of ash. The implication suggested by the sutra above and by the great treatises which comment upon it is that we must try to keep an attitude of wanting to help all living creatures, of wanting to assure their happiness. So try to remain in that pure vision where you only see pure good in other people. If you're not capable of this, then at least it would be nice if you could try to speak badly of others a little less that you do not know, a little bit less than you do now.
Yeah. And I really like this paragraph because to me, this paragraph is very Geshe Michael Roach
Hmm.
because you know how Geshe tries to encourage us to take things to the kitchen, daily life. And it's cool to see how the reading is giving us like an idea of how to use this complex reasoning philosophy to daily life. It says, okay, think good about people. And if you cannot think good about them, just try to speak less about their bad things, you know?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like a very cool thing. But again, I have problems and questions regarding this reading already. And is this, check it out. In one hand, the reading is telling you, like, don't judge anybody because you don't know who is who. Maybe one of those people that you will be criticizing is really a very holy being.
Hmm.
And if you judge them, you will plant very bad seeds and you will go to hell, basically, right? It says that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But check this out. My question is this, like, in a way, we can say that karma and seeds, well, karma, they say, is movement of the mind
Hmm.
and what it motivates, right? What it causes, what it creates, what it triggers. Okay. So, and this is a question I had for a long time. If
Hmm.
I give an apple to my mom, let's say, and let's assume she likes apples, I will be planting very good seeds, even more seeds than, let's say, if Adam gives an apple to my mom. Let's assume that I don't know, a stranger in the streets gives an apple to my mom versus me giving an apple to my mom. As far as I understand, because of the relationship I shared with that karmic object, it will be more powerful for me to
Hmm.
give an apple to my mom than it will be for a stranger.
Hmm.
Because to me, that object is my mom. And you see how they say parents, teachers,
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
like categories of powerful karmic objects.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is it possible? Is it possible
Uh-huh.
for your mom to actually be your teacher?
I think so, yes.
Like, let's say you take them as your teacher.
Hmm.
Yeah. Would it be the case that they would also be your teacher while also being your mom?
I think so, yes.
So maybe it's the case that that could be true with all beings and being angels.
I think it's the case. It could be the
You do?
case. But
I,
but my question then it
yeah.
will take to this place. If I don't see someone as an angel and I give them an apple,
Mm-hmm.
would I be collecting the karma to give an apple to an
To an
angel,
angel?
or would I be collecting the karma to give an apple to a normal person? Like,
Can,
does the karma that I collect depends on how I'm seeing that object,
mm-hmm.
or
Well,
is, you know what I'm where I'm going?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. And I do see how these two things could be I want to say oppositional, but I want to use a different word. How these two things could be contradictory, okay? Um, and I don't know. I just posed to you guys some a thought that I had a long time ago. Um, I realized, I think, through my study of these teachings, um, I started to realize that all things are only as holy as you make them. Okay, you can make things more holy if you treat them that way, right? That's why it happened. It occurred to me one time. I was like, "Oh, how do you take a teacher? You know, and what is a teacher? And how do I know who is my teacher?" And then I heard Geshe Michael say one teaching. He said, "You know, your heart teacher is the person who has changed you most for the good spiritually in this world." Okay. So your teacher would be the person who has changed your heart for the most, right? Here in this life. Now, you take that person as your teacher, right? And you're still going to see things, right? You're going to imagine that maybe they have pimples or something, and a teacher would never have pimples, or they leave their socks on the ground or something instead of putting them up. And you're like, okay. Ava said, did you hear Ava?
No, what you say?
She said, I leave my socks on the ground and I'm your teacher. Um, anyways, but let's say you see some faults in your teacher, yeah? And you think to yourself, well, you know what? I don't know if an angel would act that way. I don't know if a living Buddha would act that way. I think the idea here and what I'm trying to say is that once again, those things, the imperfections that you see in your teacher coming from your own mind, yeah? And I think what you're doing Like I said, this is my own personal thought. It's my opinion. Okay. I think what we are doing when we take a teacher is we're supposed to take the closest thing to an angel that we have in our life, the closest thing that we can imagine as being perfect. I specifically think about Geshe Michael, the most perfect, the coolest, the most intelligent, right? The most loving, right? He is the closest thing that I've encountered on this planet to a living angel. Okay? The closest. Yeah. So it's interesting to think about you taking, right, the closest thing that you can imagine as an angel on this planet and taking them as your teacher, because then what you do is you slowly, slowly treat them like an angel until they actually become one, right, in your mind. Uh, and then I think what you do, if you can do this with one person, is you move to the next closest thing, right? And then the next closest thing. So, in the case that you're doing it with Geshe Michael, maybe, then maybe you switch and you start focusing that on your mom and your dad, right? And you're like, you know what? I turned Geshe Michael. I feel like every time I meet Geshe Michael, I'm standing in the presence of an angel, right? Now let's see if you can do that with your mom and dad, right? Then you take and you do that with your husband, your wife, right? Then you take and you do that with your friends. Then you take and you do that same thing with everybody in your town, right? Then you do it with everybody in your country. Then you do it with everybody in the world, you know? But you have to start somewhere. And that's why I use the term things in this world are only as holy as you make them, right? In the same way that a chew toy can also be a pen, that same pen could be an object of liberation. Okay. You could see your computer, right, as being an object of liberation, something that will change the world. If you're translating or if you're doing Dharma projects, your computer becomes an object for removing suffering from all people, right? So uh, it's just once again is to go into kind of what Juan was saying there. Um, I think it's all very tied, yeah, tied together. I mean, what does it mean if you say, okay, well, maybe there's contradiction here. You say, what about my teacher, right? And then if I don't know, like if I have five people in a room, right, and they could all very well be angels, right? One of them's my mom and one of them's my teacher. Um, do I actually take on the karma of giving uh, somebody an apple, right? If they're an angel, but I don't see them that way. I think it's a very good question. I think it's a very, very good question. But I would say, because also what Gyaltsab J is saying here is that if you don't see them as an angel, but they are an angel, then you get the bad karma. So why would you get bad karma,
Yeah.
but you can't get the good karma, right? Like, so it seems a little contradictory. Yeah. Um, I think it's very interesting. Sorry, Juan, can I have just one more minute?
No, totally. And I
Uh,
think, as I say, Metas, I think for me, one of the purposes of this session is that we really come and ask the questions. And if
Yeah.
we find something that, well, maybe this doesn't make total sense yet to me, we can share it here and figure it out. And
Mhm.
that's exactly the
Mhm.
question. Like, why if I don't know, I yell at Adam, but maybe he's a special person, I will, how to say, collect bad karma.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, how could I plan? How could I plant such powerful seeds
If you
if
don't see them that way.
exactly it,
Well,
and karma is movement of the mind.
because it's almost like saying that they exist that way from their own side.
Yeah, yeah,
Like an angel is an angel from its own side,
yeah.
right? So if I treat them, right, like I want to say a scumbag,
Okay.
okay? If I treat them like because maybe they're yelling at me, right? Uh, yeah, I think that that would imply that they exist from their own side.
Yeah. Although there is some other phenomena that I find very interesting, which is like not only because I think of someone as something, it means that that someone is that something. And I
Mm.
will put that example. What
Yeah.
if I have a thinking that, oh, do you know Adam? Yeah, Adam, the plumber next door. And for whatever reason, I believe that Adam is a plumber, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then at some point I realized, no, he was not a plumber. I was wrong and I was confused.
yeah,
Now, some people argue, which I don't necessarily agree, that at the moment that I thought you were a plumber and I was convinced that you were a plumber, you were a plumber. And then
yeah,
when I realized you were not a plumber, like
yeah.
my seats just changed and all of a sudden you are not anymore. But I don't
Mhm.
buy it. I think there exists such a thing called as confusion, as a
Mhm.
projection, as a seed,
Mhm. Mhm.
and mistakes like
Mhm. Mhm.
as a
Mhm.
projection, as a
Well,
seed.
so what is, I mean, so everybody's, I feel like most people should have heard the analogy of the rope and the snake. Okay.
Mhm.
We talk about the difference between perceiving a rope, right? Or excuse me, perceiving a snake, but then there actually being a rope, right? I also think this could tie into the topic of what we're studying right now, which is pramana, accurate perception. Geshe Michael gives an example of working at the diamond company, right? And then going to buy some diamonds and then thinking that he was getting a good deal. And so he buys like a few $1 million worth of diamonds, right? And at the time, so he goes back to his office and then he's talking to his boss. And his boss says, "You stupid. Like, why did you do this? This was a bad deal." And Geshe Michael told him, he said, "No, this was the correct decision at the time, right?" So it's the difference between a correct perception and an accurate perception. Do you see my point there? Right? Like you think you're getting a good deal, right? Like you think the snake is a snake, right? But the deal is actually a bad deal.
That's
And
true.
the
That's true.
and the snake was actually a rope, right?
That's
So
true.
the angry person that you're looking at, right? They're not an angry person. They're actually an angel.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you see how those three examples? I hope I'm not confusing you.
No,
I
I
feel like
think
I
I
feel like
think
I confused.
I know. I think we are confused, and at least I
Yeah.
am confused. And that's why I'm a human.
Yeah.
And just talking about these things is just makes evident how I am confused. But that's great.
That's what I was gonna say. If Juan yells at me, Juan gets good karma because I'm the schmuck. I'm the
Yeah,
one that's not enlightened. And
yeah.
Juan is just trying to help me level up my consciousness. Juan is just trying to help me level up.
Now it's true what you say about the snake and the rope, and the other example we hear sometimes is the mouse and the leaf in the road.
Yeah.
But then there is such a thing. There is a teaching called the full karmic path. Remember
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
supposedly you
Mhm.
don't
Mhm.
collect the full karma
Mhm.
if you run over the mouse. But then it was not a mouse
Yeah.
and it was a leaf. Apparently, you don't collect the full karma of having
Mhm.
killed a mouse.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's the thing. If you never realize that it was not a mouse, do you collect the karma of having killed a mouse? If you think it was a mouse, do you collect the karma to having killed a mouse or not? And that's, I don't know how to answer that, to be honest, yet.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Well, this is interesting stuff. And I'm glad that our conversations go here because it gives us all something to think about over the week, right? And how many times do you do this every day? Every time you create a backstory for somebody, right? Every time you try to think about why somebody is acting a certain way or why somebody painted their truck a certain way, everything. Yeah, you kind of do it all day long. You're just creating these stories and these fictions in your mind, right? Yeah, it's the learning lab. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm thinking now? Like maybe just understanding that things are empty and things come from seeds in our minds, and that there is a possibility that the people who we judge are not what they seem, understanding that our minds makes incorrect assumptions sometimes. I think that by itself opens a possibility to start planting very powerful karma. It's kind of this realization that the reading is giving us is like a tool that if we install it in our minds and we are aware that we could be judging others wrong, which it's a possibility as well.
Hmm.
I think that is like a program that's gonna start producing very good karma, very
Hmm.
good movement of the mind, and
Hmm.
very good results that will come from that movement of the mind.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it may be like a, a program or a tool that we install in our minds, this way of thinking. Anyways, anybody else has something to add or questions? Or now the thing is, if you have questions, I will encourage you to talk with your friends about these things, talk with your teachers, with other people. Try to figure it out. If we somehow help to put questions in your mind with sometimes I think that's big part of the success, just having the right questions or stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if you find something out, let us know as well. Don't think we're only here to share. We are all also here to learn, at
And
least me.
discuss.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I like the discussions. I like it when I've always had a lot of fun in the groups that I teach in person, whenever we get a big discussion going.
All right. Very cool. Now it's almost time to finish the session. But just so you know, the idea is to finish the run look section. Maybe in one more session or two max, the run look section can be done. We are so close to finish it. And I don't know if I should just show you, maybe just for good luck, I'll show you where we are at right now. Last session, we talked about the door of sense of touch and the ways to divide it in touchable things, which are elements, and touchable things, which are products of the elements. We did talk about it, but we'll talk about it again next time. Just a quick review, but I want to show it to you so you live with this in mind. The four elements and their definitions, we talked about it and how they are kind of characteristics that physical matter has, and then these seven kinds of I don't know, probably I will call them sensations, if that's correct in English to call them sensations. But then from it, we just realized how we finish all the outer form and we were gonna move into inner form, which is the last segment of the run look section. And then yeah, we'll look at all these things, but that's for later. All right, any final comments or anything? Tomorrow, try to come to translation class. Probably you are all familiar with it. Geshe teaches, well, the classes are all Mondays and Saturdays. Geshe teaches most of them, but sometimes he has to travel and stuff, which is the case of next Monday. He will be going to San Diego, but tomorrow, Saturday, Geshe and Adam will be having a segment on their book. And what else? Japan is coming up soon. Try to watch those classes, are gonna be amazing. Geshe is leading us to the Diamond Way teachings.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be very cool. I'll share in the chat later the link for people who would like to watch online. Probably you all have that, but it's a good idea to also keep sharing news there.
Can I have like one more minute? The I wanted to show you guys. I when I went to the monastery to Geshe Michael's monastery, I found these CDs, okay, and it was a recording of Geshe Tupten Rinchen teaching Tarlam Selje, which is the book that Juan was presenting today. Um, and Juan was talking about, and I agree with him, that it's really fun whenever we have discussions, right? And we go back and forth. So Geshe Tupten Rinchen is what His Holiness called he said he was the single greatest scripture teacher in the world. Okay. And Geshe Tupten Rinchen taught Geshe Michael um, uh, Trange. Okay. So the personally, okay, and it was just Geshe Michael and also illumination of the true thought. Yeah. So Geshe Tupten Rinchen, one of the greatest scripture teacher in the world, um, and Geshe Michael was one of his main students that he would teach one on one. Okay. And there's a recording that I have here of Geshe Tupten Rinchen teaching the Pramana class. Okay. And I wanted you guys to hear what it's like to be in a Pramana class at the monastery. So tell me if you can hear this. Okay. I'm going to play it.
那咱们看的时间，这嘛这么点击电子都有钱着呢。我现在听到我的听，点击一米线儿，点击二吧，点击印子一米线儿，我年薪就一米线儿，年薪从这一米线儿，年薪从这一米的这一米是这个，这个对，干嘛一米汤？哦，对那么夸他。이거도 타임이 셔 그래 암조 과뭐 당기면다 시당 땡이 요 고마고만 저래 삼을 가이는 저래 암조 가고 잡아 당기 삼데 됐어요 말이 현아 암조는 세 말해 저거를 예시 중
All right. It's enough, but I just wanted you to hear Geshe Tupten Rinchen, right, is teaching, and he has 20, maybe 30 students, and they're all coming back, and they're all saying, well, what do you think? Do you agree with this? And they're all like, no, I don't agree with that. That's blah, 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 blah. So I just wanted to show how lively and how fun Dharma classes can be, right? It doesn't have to all be so strict, like, and it's just us talking. I don't like talking at people. That's why I try to ask a lot of questions. Uh, anyways, I hope that was interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was. And some people put in the chat, it's true. There are some actual videos and recordings of Geshe Tupten Rinchen teaching Geshe Michael's group
Yeah,
in the Geshe universities in India.
yeah,
And Geshe is translating. So Geshe
mhm.
Tupten Rinchen teaches in Tibetan and Geshe is translating to English. It's very cool. And this is like 50 classes, right? It's very
Yeah, it's huge.
serious.
Yeah.
I watch a few, and
Mhm,
they are teaching the content that Geshe used to develop course 15. So
mhm,
really
mhm.
cool. 26, somebody says.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge course. They're
Amazing.
all like 2 hours, I think, like 2 hours long.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. And next week we still have a session. Then we'll see because the Japan trip, but next week we have session. And yeah, everybody, if you have comments, questions, or things you want to share and present, please feel free and you can prepare something. You can even, how to say, share with us a little topic or something like that. I want you to feel like this is, as Adam say, as place to come and share. Is like open space for people to also participate in different ways. The
Mhm.
Pramana Lab. Okay. See you then. Thank you so much, translators, and thank you
Yes.
so much, Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tech Table, Gina, for and everybody recording as well.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for doing the production. Yeah, all the translators, everybody who's running the Zoom call. Juan's been super, super good. I mean, I really appreciate all the work that's going into this.
Awesome. Okay, so if everything goes well, see you tomorrow at Geshe-las and Adam's session.
Yeah. All right, guys.
See you.
Have a good day.
Yeah,
You wave,
this is
Ava.
new, right? Now
Yeah.
you can make
Ava, you can
hearts
do
from
this.
your
You like
hands.
this? You make a heart.
Yeah. Yay. And these two, look.
The peace sign? Can you do the peace sign?
Yeah,
Maybe?
it throws
the-
balloons, but I don't know why not round.
All
Anyways.
right, guys.
Okay, bye.
All right. See you. Have a good day, everyone. And sleep